You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Tell you what, folks, doing a show after a Maple Leafs victory like that in Calgary on Tuesday night just hits a bit differently. Presented by Bet365, it is the Wednesday edition of Leafs Morning Take. Nick Alberga and Carter Hutton. What's going on, Huts?
Nick, yes, buddy. It feels good, especially with Ottawa, like hot on our heels. They lose, we win. What a nice, I had to stay up a little later than usual. I like to be tucked in earlier than that, but what a game to stay up for. What a performance.
Tell you what, I don't mind staying up till 5 a.m. if I get to witness an outing, a performance like that. Just feeling so good. And it was loud in that building. Like, again, I go to a lot of games at Scotiabank Arena. There's not really a feel of like emotion or atmosphere, with all due respect, of course. I don't even know why I'm giving respect to that building. But Calgary was buzzing last night, and a sea of blue, and you love to see that. What a night for Willie Nylander. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet at a huge range of markets, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all in uppercase today. That's NATION, N-A-T-I-O-N. That's N-A-T-I-O-N. Our Super Chat charity partner this season is Sick Kids. Want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show? Hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada and 3rd in the world. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. But certainly feeling pretty damn good. And you're so right. The standings getting very, very precarious. I think the good news for the Leafs last night, Ottawa loses in regulation, but these were two monster games they had to get, and 2 for 4 so far on this road trip, Huts.
Yeah, it looks good too. I guess maybe for a little while there, we were starting to waver. We were starting to worry what it looked like and where it was at. And again, now I don't know if this is another one for all those Mitch Marner, haters out there. He's out of the lineup, and I thought they did a great job without him, right? I guess for this, it's just nice to see, right? This is a tough road trip. Joseph Woll has played a ton of games, right? He's been busy. He's been great. He's staying healthy, and it's a step in the right direction. Yes, we need more from the bottom six. Yes, we're going to pick this apart as we go here, but that was a big win last night in Calgary.
I think we're in lockstep. Who needs to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs on Thursday night? But don't reveal your answer right now. On the Marner front, we're going to get to that too, but I don't subscribe to that, because we all know the numbers. Whenever a star player leaves the lineup, they tend to win. It makes absolutely no sense, but it gets the team rising up to the occasion, doesn't it? Like even in the playoffs last year, right, with Matthews and Nylander, like they really, really rally. It seems to be like a rallying cry whenever a big boy can't go.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think next man up too, right? And I think as we go through this lineup here and as we pick apart like this little stretch run, there's some players here that are just playing really, really well, right? Tanev is a beast out there blocking shot. I love Jake McCabe. Every time he just keeps bringing it. And the guy for me that is like my player that embodies like the NHL and everything right now is Bobby McMann. I absolutely love Bobby McMann and what he brings to this Leafs team here, Nick.
Wild. $1.35 million. Great contract. Great fine by the organization. But yeah, he's making $1.35 million next year. Pretty damn good. I tweeted this out yesterday, but the cap's going to be $95.5 million, and you're going to pay a guy who's going to be a 20 to 30 goal scorer, we'll say, in Bob McMann, $1.35 million. Granted, July 1, he's going to be eligible for an extension. The next contract is going to be way higher, but that's good value at least for next season.
Yeah, good value right now when they have to pay lots of guys, right? I think that's
True.
fine. And you can't really predict when that comes or what it is. You just have to live in the moment and that fact of they got him locked up at a number. And I understand what Bobby McMann went through, having a good year, and then you get that contract, especially when you never had a payday before, right? You see this all the time, guys that haven't, you got to sign, right? Because then there's that risk of injury and what's going on, and he's missed some time. So a great signing. He's playing so well last night, and what a goal for him.
Yeah, and the unique thing about Bob McMann, it's not like he's a 19-year-old. He's a bit longer in the tooth. It took him longer to get to the NHL, different pathway, but my goodness, that speed and that shot. And, I talked about this as well on X yesterday. 6 players have combined to score 76% of Toronto's goals, and 3 of those guys combined for everything last night. Just the theme with this Maple Leafs team, and certainly a conversation of depth that can be brought up in the coming days leading up to March 7th. We talked about this yesterday with Brian Hayes. It is like deja vu all over again when it comes to the trade deadline. Look for a partner for Morgan Riley. Look for depth scoring. Look for D-depth. Like it's always the same, isn't it?
It is. And I guess that's some of the things that didn't get answered during, summer free agency and stuff like that. But it's tough, right? It's like, I feel like the NHL is very similar, right? You talk about all these teams. We talk about all the teams in the hunt looking for guys. It's like, well, we need to add depth We need to add a bottom six pairing. We need to add this. It's hard because everybody's looking for guys.
Yeah.
And not that they're just looking for guys. Teams don't want to give up guys that have value, right? Because not really teams, unless there's a guy on an expiring contract that's a perfect fit. And majority of those guys on expiring contracts have big paydays coming. And a lot of these teams that are in contender situations that are trying to make a push don't really have the space, or they're worried about how much the rental fee is going to be. So it's always an interesting time, I think, that time of year, because teams are looking for guys. But at the same sense, it's nice to start to see guys slotted, and trying to get everybody back healthy here is the biggest thing, to see who's actually going to be capable of helping this team come playoff time.
Our chat, dude, is so dialed in. Gary K with the point of the century. Hartman forfeited a third of what Bob McMahon makes. Just think about that. Think about that. Like, it's
10 games.
What a selfish play. And of course, we're not a Minnesota Wild podcast, but a 10-game suspension for Ryan Hartman. You played with him, didn't you? Or you must
No,
have
I just played against him. I never played with him, but he bounced around a little bit because he was in Nashville. But yeah, it was a bullshit. It's a bullshit play. Bullshit play. I love that they gave him 10 games.
He's Mr. Central Division, that guy. Like, I made this joke on NHL Network Radio like 3 years ago. I think he's played for like the majority of the Central Division now. Minnesota, Dallas, Nashville, probably missing somebody in there.
Yeah, he's done a lot. And he's honestly, and that's what, like, I was on last night on Sirius, and we talked about it a bit. It's like every 60 games, right, he does something stupid. And I get you have to like walk the line, right? I get there is that the kind of player you are. And I played with tons of guys like that. But now that's just a stupid play, right? I know Stützle, not a lot of guys like him, especially with the diving. And he just kind of came in the league as a younger guy and got a bad rep as a guy that didn't. But you can't do that. That's a BS play, man. Someone's going to get hurt, and I'm glad that they came down on him hard.
Yeah, that was the unique thing about that, is who it was against, and the notorious top diver in the NHL, and Timothy Smith. But we talked about this yesterday. I think you do the time, you do their crime, or you do the crime, you do the time. Other way around, I think he deserved that. But the first ever TLN Nation vacation just around the corner, Huts. We're headed to Nashville from Thursday, March 20th to Sunday, March 23rd. In addition to supplying your ticket to the Toronto-Nashville game on the Saturday night, we'll be hosting a live podcast for all of you at Love and Exile Winery and Bar in East Nashville. Why don't you tell us about that spot?
Yeah, Love and Exile. It's our wine brand. We have a location where we got a lot of good eats and a lot of good wine, obviously. So we have a branded company that is out of Nashville. My partner and I, we started it when I was playing there, and it's been growing wild. So we're in about 500 places inside the Nashville and like lower southern states. And it's a great time. Honestly, I can't wait. I'm excited. We'll get to check it out. We'll get to sample some wine, get to see how the process works. And we'll be doing a live show from our location. We got a cool, the venue will be bumping. We got an outdoor venue, and I think the weather will be turning by that point. So we'll have a lot of fun.
Elite venue, and as Huts mentioned, part of this experience is a winery tour, so make sure you book right now. We're offering 2 packages, one with flights, $24.50 plus tax, one without, $12.99 plus tax. Hotel rooms are double occupancy. For more information on how to book, head on over to nationgear.ca. That's nationgear.ca, or check out the link in our show bio. Life's too short for ordinary vacations. Cannot wait for Music City, but also can't wait for today's guest. The legendary Scotty Bowman is going to drop by in about 20 minutes here, Huts.
Yes, exciting times. Scotty, I got a chance to know him when I was playing in Chicago and Rockford. I spent 2 seasons there, and Scotty was a big fan of mine, backer, and his son, obviously, Stan, was the GM. So obviously cool when you get to meet a legend. And I was trying to, I wonder if I could find the video. I never looked for it, but there's a video of me getting interviewed after a game in Rockford. And I'm really green at this point, and I had played really well, and I'm doing the interview, and Scotty Bowman walks by and like gives me knuckles. And on the broadcast, Mike Peck, who worked for the Rockford Ice Hogs, is like, hey, did Scotty Bowman just give you knuckles? And I'm like, yeah, Scotty Bowman just did give me knuckles. Like one of those moments, right? I think looking back now, and in that moment, it was pretty cool. So it's obviously full circle event. You're getting a chance to hear Scotty talk, and he's got enough cups to talk about everything.
He is, I know, and it's wild. As a Leafs fan, you just want one Stanley Cup. Scotty Bowman has been a part of 14 Stanley Cups. Like, it is absolutely wild, and he's every bit of the word of hockey lifer. The fact that he's in his 90s and still tapped in, dialed in, knows what's going on around the league. Of course, his son right now is the GM of the Edmonton Oilers in Stan, but just one of the all-time greats. He is the GOAT of coaching. Like, just think about that. 14 Stanley Cups. And I think the amazing thing for me, too, is the variety, the different organizations he's won with as well.
Yeah, he's done everything, right? It's pretty cool to see. And for me, I really think about those Red Wings days, right? I like, my old man was a huge Red Wings fan.
Yeah.
I kind of grew up like born and bred into that, and watching Stevie Y and just everything he's done for the game. And he's an unbelievable guy. I believe he resides, I don't know if he still does now, but he was residing in Buffalo. He had a house in Buffalo, and that's where he used to live. So he'd always be at the Sabres game, and I got a chance to see him and talk with him. So today should be good. Hopefully he remembers me. I know I'm probably pretty little in the spectrum of the guys he's dealt with, but it was pretty cool.
We're going to find out. We are going to find out in 20 minutes from now if Scotty Bowman remembers Carter Hutton, but something tells me he does. If there's one thing you can do as we roll out these top guests here on Leafs Morning Take, just hit that like button, hit that subscribe button at the Leafs Nation 401 where you can do so. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. In support of Sick Kids, KPG sends us this super chat. Appreciate it, Nick. TLN should have a chat forum on your site. Okay, KPG, we will work on that. But again, for now, check out theleafsnation.com. And if you got something to say about the game, hit us up with a super chat. Works like that. Coming up on Saturday, February 15th, Huts, presented by Fountain Tire. The Leafs Nation will be hosting a watch party at Greta Bar in King Street West as Canada and the United States duke it out at the Four Nations. We've got ticket giveaways, signed memorabilia trivia, and t-shirt tosses happening all night long. You can join Zach Phillips and me for this 19-plus event as we cheer on Team Canada. The best part, entry is free with a reservation. Doors open at 6 p.m. Puck drop is slated for 8 p.m. Grab your free ticket, free, right now at nationgear.ca. And I'm looking forward to that tournament more so what's been happening in the world, Canada and the U.S. It's been a while since the stakes have been like that.
Yeah, no, it's exciting, right? I know everyone has their opinion on it and what they think of it, the Force Nations Cup, but I honestly, I love it. I think it's just an example of just these guys are going to get up to play, right? I think there has been some doubt about, what is going to be brought to the table, but you're telling me when Canada tees off against USA, like it's going to be absolutely nuts in my opinion. Neither guys are going to want to give an inch. I think it's going to be awesome to see. And the only thing I hate this. I wish they would have just waited to name the team. I think like they could have waited longer, like I think you could identify a group of players that are like good enough to be there. And then as the time came, made the picks. Cause right now looking at Logan Thompson from a goalie standpoint, not being on the team, and Sam Montembeault is insane. Like Logan Thompson potentially would have been the starter for this, especially how well he's playing. So, but either way, it's going to be exciting. I think, for both countries. And then the only one now at this point with Miro Heiskanen out for the Finns and Hakanpää, obviously, I don't think that's much of a setback, but they just seem like the small horse when it comes to this tournament now.
Everybody just taking direct shots at my boy Yanni Hakanpää.
Well, that was intentional.
Yeah. We've seen him play 2 games, so I have no clue what he could actually bring to the table as a Maple Leaf. In support of Sick Kids, Maxentius Decimus, thank you so much for the super chat. What's your favorite Greta Bar game? I got to beat you. Most people would say the basketball game, with the mini balls and putting it in the hoop, but I actually because I like going to the gym, they have like a bar that you can hang from and they test how long you can hang. And I think it moves. So that's probably the game I'd play you at, Max.
Yeah, that's a sweet one. I've never done that before. They had it at the fair. Like there's a fair that comes every summer. And I saw it. And the bar slightly moves a little bit. So you have to readjust your grip. It's kind of one of those street games you'll see, right? You got to hang for a minute or 100 seconds or something like that. Yeah, that's tough. Anything hanging, I'm with you. I try to stay in shape, fight off the dad bod as best as I can. But anything like hanging, pull-ups and stuff, that's obviously pretty cool. It'd be a fun game to play.
I always laugh when sometimes I hit up King Street West in the summer and there's like some stations set up at the street corner and some guys got a bar and people are hanging from it. And there's something illegal going on there, but it's just always hilarious that it's like some dude shows up, starts doing pull-ups, but that's just the nature of some people, I guess.
Yeah, I think my algorithm on Instagram has me. I follow that Body by Mark where he always goes up to people in the streets and be like, I'll pay you $100 if you can do 10 pull-ups or whatever. And it's funny, but who knows what's going on in Toronto on Queen Street.
Dude, my algo is so fucked. Okay. All that shows up on my X is this Bonnie Blue character, 1,000 Ks in an hour. I think it was I think she's a porn star. And I don't know what the hell is going on with X. Never mind YouTube. It's just all over the board. I don't know what it is.
Wild. I feel like it's so unfiltered now, right? Like
even
for me, like the fights, crazy. X is crazy in my opinion. Instagram, I feel like is pretty dialed into hockey and like gym stuff and things that I follow. Nothing too crazy. But X, God, I'm like worried to scroll that thing in public or ever have my phone out because you never know what's going to come up on there.
Yeah, I feel like that algo is out to get me on X. But, yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat on YouTube. I don't know. I like a lot of like ASMR, man, like people getting their haircuts, stuff like that. It soothes me, gets me to bed. But there's a lot of hockey on there as well. Nevertheless, we're gonna dive in now to this Maple Leafs victory. Got to start with Willie Nylander. You know, for as marvelous as his career has been, doesn't really get hat tricks, and that's why I thought he was gonna stop at 2. But I thought it was quite poetic that he gets his second career hat trick, scores his first goal. A lot of people forget he was actually born in Calgary, lived there for a couple years, but 8 years to the day of his first NHL Hattie, gets another Hattie. I thought he was great last night.
Yeah, he was great last night. And again, the power play, you know what I mean, right? That's huge for this team, right? I think giving up 2, and obviously you don't want to get scored against on the penalty kill, but they were 5-on-3s, obviously tough ones in that sense, right? Willie Nylander, what a shot. The release. The second one for me is a wild play, in my opinion. To let him walk down like that to the ladies' tee is just like mind-blowing. Think of me as a goalie, like you have Dustin Wolf, who is arguably one of the most explosive goalies, like east-west on a rink. And you let Willie Nylander walk in pretty much on a breakaway and just like fire it by him. It makes no sense to me. And then obviously the hat trick, I think just to play Mackenzie Weegar, I think would like that one back at the blue line there, trying to get cute. And then once he gets a puck, he's absolutely gone. So it was cool to see. And I did love the after effect of the hats all over the ice and Mackenzie Weegar just like hammering a puck. We were watching the highlights again this morning with my son because he always wants to know how the Leafs did. And he was loving that. The guy was so mad trying to smash the hat off the ice.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's the unique thing, I think, for my takeaway of that game is that Calgary's been pretty locked in defensively. And you just see what the Maple Leafs are capable of. Like, if you remember correctly, 2 weeks ago, we were talking again, granted, everybody and their mother was hurt, how this Leafs team couldn't score. But then you get that brief reminder. It's like, yeah, they could score at any second. I do still think they're top heavy, but it was just that type of night for Willie Nylander. And the interesting thing is like this team was snake bit in the first period. This is all about the final 40 minutes where they came to play, but I think they really dissected, in my opinion, one of the better teams defensively in the NHL this season and one of the hottest goalies in the league in Dustin Wolf. But again, it just speaks to the volume and the importance of this game, especially with everybody around them in the standings winning. So they got that one in Edmonton to finish off the Alberta sweep this year specifically. Very, very difficult stuff. For some reason, the Leafs seem to have Calgary's number. That's 5 in a row and 6 of the last 7 against the Flames Huts.
Yeah, that was a big one, right? And again, I think how the game started, right? You get the 2 goals called back in the first period, the high stick and then the goalie interference, which I don't want to argue about that one. I didn't love that one, but
yeah,
okay, it went our way. But in the same sense, I think this team got better as it went, right? It could have been one of those games where, you know, after the first, they could have just kind of slept away, you know, got a little sleepy in this one. I thought they dug deep and they kept grinding. And at times I thought Calgary didn't look very good for a team that's so good at home and doesn't get scored on. But I also want to give the Leafs credit sticking to their game and grinding them down and getting to where they needed to be and then drawing those power plays. And for me, there's some key points in this game. I thought Chris Tanev was unbelievable. That guy just blocks shots. It's nuts. And then you know what I love? I pump his tires enough, Jake McKay, but that hit that he throws on, was it Rooney, right? I think he caught
Kevin Rooney. Yeah.
And then he doesn't fight after it. It's a smart play. It just sets a tone and the energy in the building, right? There were so many fans there. And I think what I love is the fact of the matter is they don't get out, they get out to Calgary once a year. It's like, there's so much anticipation for Leafs fans that are out west and they get to go to this game. It was a ruckus crowd and it was a great game. I'm sure that was a hell of a game to be at.
I know. And I think you make a great point about the power play. Like we've talked so many times this year, how it's been a buzzkill and it's killed momentum. I actually think it worked in the opposite direction the last couple games. They were 2 for 2 against Edmonton over the weekend, 2 for 4 last night, but they're snapping it around a bit. And it's always interesting when a star player is out, no Marner, but I thought the power play, and again, I didn't watch the majority of the game over the weekend against Edmonton, looked pretty damn good. They look confident and they look directional in the way they were going to operate, which you like to see too.
Yeah, which is simple, right? Like less, fluff, you know what I mean? I think it's obviously Nylander makes a hell of a shot to score there. And then the play for me, that is just world class is JT right in the house, right? That is a great play. Not many guys have the poise and awareness and ability to make that play, right? To grab that puck, quickly pull to his backhand. It's off his backhand inside the post. That's a world-class goal. And I just think all around, everybody was good, right? The Bobby McMahon goal was obviously a huge goal in that moment. And we're talking about Dustin Wolf, who's arguably one of the best goalies in the league right now. And he just snaps that by him. And I think like Laurent's getting the puck up to him. I don't know if you watched the play, but Bobby McMann is like checking for the back checker, right? He does like a shoulder check to check his speed. And then as that pass comes, he almost misses it. Like he just catches it in time and he walks right in. And that's a world-class shot. And I love what Bobby McMann is doing. I'm a big fan of this guy. I guess maybe because I'm biased because I love the guys that aren't like silver spooners that like have to earn it. And, he's setting up well in this lineup here.
Man, I the more and more I watch Bob McMahon, the more and more I think about the Stanley Cup playoffs, and you need players like Bob McMahon. Like you think about guys who are not Matthews, Nylander, or Marner or Tavares to score that big goal. Like he is going to be so instrumental to the success of this team. But he's become like an every night type thing. If you like, it's hard to forget Bob McMahon was a healthy scratch for the first game of the season. Put it that way.
Yeah, it is actually crazy to think about, right? But he has that build and that size, right? Because you always talk about that managing the regular season versus managing playoffs, right? Because I always feel like there's this weird divide in hockey, right? We watch the regular season, it's wide open, everyone's going, and then all of a sudden, everything that gets called in the regular season gets let go in the playoffs. So all of a sudden, now you have to like change your game, and I really relate this back to that one series against Montreal, right, where they lost in the playoffs. It was obviously a tough one. But I felt like the stick work on Matthews was insane. It was like he couldn't take a stride without getting hooked and everything got let go. Where in the regular season, that would be that. But now you have a guy like Bobby McMann, who I think his game translates so well to the playoffs. And something we can maybe chat about here when Stan Bowman goes on some of his experience of guys that, relate from regular season to playoff. I think he's a perfect fit because maybe if he's not scoring goals at that point, he's taking up space. He's running guys. He's making it hard on a team, especially in a 7-game series. I think he can be a big difference maker.
In support of Sick Kids, again, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Maxentius Decimus sends us another super chat. Appreciate this. Bobby is everything Robertson wishes he could be. It's a valid point. He finishes a bit more. I think you would love that in general from your bottom six is a bit more finish, but can't say enough good things about Bob McMahon. You are so right. He's had a great season, great value on that contract. And I just wonder where he's going to be utilized come the Stanley Cup playoffs. I guess it depends on the acquisitions between now and the March 7th trade deadline. But even last night, I think Pacioretty started in the top 6 and it ended up being McMahon because sometimes you got to play the hot hand, right?
Yeah, I agree too. And Pacioretty's a guy that's going to fill in any role, right? I know at times his boots aren't as good as they should be, but he fits, right? He's a guy, again, I think his physicality and the role that he'll play, any role, he'll fit in well. For Bobby McMahon, yes, for Nick Robertson, it's tough, right? I don't know what else to say about.
I think he's going.
I think he has to, right? At this point, I think like it's just tough, right? He's all over the map, and the way Bobby McMahon fits into this lineup is huge. And for me, I guess last night I really liked Austin Matthews' game as well too. Without Marner there, I think at times it's like you really see how much he can carry the puck, right? I think we get so used to Marner being the guy at all times, right? Handling it, making plays, and like he becomes more of that shooter where they're just feeding him. We're like, Austin Matthews is a world-class centerman. He can do it all, right? But at times he doesn't need to because he has his wingman there with Marner. So I thought last night was awesome, and I think it was exciting to watch him without Marner too as well.
2 more points. Max Domi, I thought it was one of his better games in a while. It certainly helps when you're promoted to the top line. You're playing with a hard-nosed guy like Matthew Nyes, and Austin Matthews gets 3 apples. And the other thing I noticed, especially in the first half, Morgan Riley activated pretty much every play. That's the most engaged I've seen those 2 players in a while, which is good news. I know it's 1 game, small sample size, but build upon that with 2 more games remaining here before the 4 Nations Huts.
Yeah, for sure. You have to keep building on it, right? And I think sometimes trending in the right direction, getting away from your house, where you live, and getting on the road is beneficial at times, right? Maybe it's more rest. Maybe it's, who knows what the recipe is, but I think there's a good fit here, right? And I think for Domi, it's been obviously a trying season at times, I think, statistically speaking, and where he's fit, but he just doesn't seem like a bottom 6 guy. He seems like he has to be playing in that role where he is with better players. And I don't know where this was going to end up, but obviously there's a reason like they need him produce, especially when he is the highest paid forward outside of the big boys, right? So it'll be interesting to see what happens as they start to get bodies healthy and as we move forward especially after the break.
Yeah, the all-time numbers, by the way, without Mitch Marner, and again, it's similar without John Tavares or like a Nylander or an Austin Matthews, 22, 17, and 2 all-time without Marner. By the way, Craig Berube after the game said he didn't believe the injury is too serious. Again, take everything the Leafs say about injuries with a grain of salt. Important to state that every time, but he said he might play on Thursday in Seattle. So we'll just take that for what it is, but I think the big news that the team can elevate without some of their star players, not having Marner. They didn't skip a beat. They scored a bunch of goals, which is great to see. The confidence is there. But all in all, it was just like a really bizarre game for somebody who had the over 5.5. I was sweating it after watching that first period, more so because 2 goals get called back. But the second and third period, much different stories. But how that it was such a rarity in the fact that Toronto was on 2 long 5-on-3s against, which you're hard pressed to find one in like a 10-game stretch. But this was like 2 in like half a hockey game.
I know, yeah, it's crazy, right? Especially the way that it went down. And I think there's just, at times it happens, they come in waves. And I think the penalty kill, obviously for Joseph Wall giving up the 5-on-3, it is what it is. I'd like to see him manage his depth a little more on a 5-on-3, right? Something that I think I got better at as I got more mature in the league. Like, shots are coming, so you almost want to be aggressive. Where I think 5-on-3, it's like make them beat you, right? Don't let it go around you. The one from the point, it is what it is. I think it was Coronado got the first one right after 10. I've blocked about 5 times there.
Yeah,
I think just managing his depth a little better. But for Joseph Wall, I think he's been great too in this trip so far, right? He's a guy, I think, since the injury of Stolarz, he's going to be back soon. I read a stat actually last night. He's played the most games other than Connor Hellebuck since the Stolarz injury, which I think is awesome, which I think is reassuring for us as, Hellebuck's a guy that plays every single night, right? So I think for Joseph Wall, it's great. I think it's going to be great to get Stolarz back and have them, especially coming into this break here. But it's obviously penalties sometimes contain the game. But I think more importantly right now is the power play seems to be clicking better.
it is, and that's a fortunate, positive development for this team as we get closer and closer, of course, to the Stanley Cup playoffs. But certainly, that was a big story for me. Was a discipline, taking some dumb penalties. You don't want to give any team 1 5-on-3, never mind 2. But I thought Joseph Wall stood tall. It's an excellent point too. I think he honestly deserves a lot of credit because entering this year, even the way it started, you're like, shit, here we go again. But he's been there. He's been dependable. And now I think they can turn the crease over or do a little platoon thing. I don't know how you want to see the crease deployed over the next 2 games, but I think we're both in agreement. Anthony Stolarz, you were good enough to back up back-to-back games. You were starting Thursday night in Seattle, right?
Yeah, I think 100%. I think 100% that's Anthony Stolarz' game, especially the fact that you have Vancouver to end. It's an early game. I think that is the play. Vancouver's pushing right now. They had a big win last night against Colorado. I think that is the game. It sets up well. It's a Canadian game. I think Stolarz, you can kind of hide him a bit in that Seattle game, get him his first start. And then the fact of the matter, he's got a lot of time to get ready, right? So I think this is important time to break. Yes, I would rather probably get some more games going right now for Stolarz, but the break, it is what it is. At least he's healthy, and at least after that game, he'll kind of have a little bit of runway to see where his body's at and how he feels. So I think he sets up well in that Seattle game.
So I was going to ask you too, as we await the arrival of Scotty Bowman here, the legend. How would you deploy the crease moving forward? Like, do you think Joseph Wall has earned the right, Huts, to be that number 1 guy just because of the way he's played, or do you go in back and forth after the 4 nations? As mentioned, they got Seattle Thursday, Vancouver on Saturday, then a massive break, then back, I believe, on February 22nd to host Carolina, and then they have a back-to-back, I believe, in Chicago on the 23rd.
Yeah, I think it's Joseph Wall's net as of right now. I wouldn't say Anthony Stolarz necessarily lost it. I think it always was Joseph Wall with that like higher ceiling to, have more time to play. But I also feel like this isn't going to be a situation where it's like a direct 1 with a backup, right? This is still a 1A, 1B situation, in my opinion. So you want to get Stolarz games. You want to get him going as well, because you just lost Stolarz for how long? Joseph Wall still has an injury history. So I think you need to keep them both going. And I don't know if it's going to be like the Swayman Allmark situation where it's exactly every game back and forth. But I think it does get to a point where it's maybe 2-1, 2-1, or, something along those lines with Joseph Wall, because I still think his game is just getting better and better and better and better. And you don't want to hinder that by having him sit on the bench for too long, in that opinion. But again, this is a good problem to have, right? I think you can dissect it any which way, but having 2 healthy, good goalies for this Toronto Maple Leafs team is going to help come playoff time.
I know we've talked about this a lot, but it's always intriguing to ask a guy who played in this league, like, do you love these tandem fits, or do you think like you need that number 1 guy? Because that conversation is coming in this market. It's going to be heavy post-deadline. Do you got to pick a guy? Can you go with both guys? Can you go back and forth in the Stanley Cup playoffs?
I think to the playoffs, you need to kind of set the table and go with a guy, right? I think we saw that with Boston even last year when Allmark got that game and played well, and then they rode Swayman. But I think there is a factor of early on, it's okay, right? I know you can look back in time and be like, teams that win always have a number 1 guy, but it's changed a bit, right? The wear and tear, the amount of travel, and the amount of pressure that these guys put on their bodies every game, every practice. So I think having a little bit of extra rest isn't a horrible thing. What I would worry about if I'm like a team like Winnipeg, or if I'm a team where I know my goalie's got to go to the Four Nations Cup and put in a lot of effort, even Gustafson, he potentially, with Allmark just coming back from injury, if he's going to play a ton of minutes, that's where I would start to worry a little bit, is like, when do they get a chance to catch up, right? I don't think a break is totally going to kill them. So this is a good problem to have. I wouldn't stress over it.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing too, is like the whole break setting right here. When you look at Wall and Stolarz, like if it's good, if it's bad, especially in sort of the aspect of Stolarz coming back from injury. I could only look at it as a positive. I don't know if you feel the same way about like some of these guys. I've been saying this for a while. I think the best case scenario for John Tavares weirdly was going down. If you recall, every January he has like a swoon. I think the fact that he's getting rest here at the Four Nations, he's going to get rest obviously from missing the 6 games with the injury. That's like a pretty good scenario and a good time, I guess, to get hurt, but he's back in the mix and feeling good too.
Yeah, I think it's important, right? I think just getting guys back and healthy. And I think the Four Nations Cup can go either way, right? I truly believe that, like, for a lot of guys, it can be a springboard, right? It can be something that really sets the table for them and helps them, jump into their season. We've seen that many times where guys go to an all-star game or a break and they find confidence in it. And you look at the players that are going, right? Like, these guys are all like conditioning freaks, right? It doesn't seem like Willie Nylander could go there and play the most minutes for Sweden and dominate the tournament. I don't really think it's going to like set him back by any means, right? Because obviously he knows how to check out of games, but he also knows how to manage his body, right? This is a guy that is just world class. But then on the other side of it, I think some older players, right, getting a break like JT, having some time to like recoup, Chris Tanev not being named, like that could be a really good thing for a player too. So I think it's a happy medium, right? It's really hard to predict because I think it's more based on the individual and like what the team's need is. But when I look at JT and I look at Chris Tanev, those are the two for the Leafs that really stand out. No Four Nations Cup, I think, is really important for guys that are going to carry a lot of mail come playoff time.
And of course, Tanev is a guy who's still in the mix to replace Alex Pietrangelo. They haven't announced who it's going to be, but I don't know about you. I think it's going to be Drew Doughty. He's back in the mix for the Los Angeles Kings. And selfishly, I don't want Chris Tanev at that tournament. Like the fewer, the better. I've made my opinion on that tournament on the record many times on this show. I think it'll be fun to watch, but it kind of concerns me, being a Leafs fan, how many star players are going to that tourney, and just knock on wood, everything goes according to plan. You come back in the right piece, in the right frame of mind here.
Yeah, sounds good. Like that's the biggest thing for me. I do think it's Doughty. I think that why we haven't heard who the other defenseman is because they were waiting for Doughty to see what it is. I just think he brings too much to the table. And Doughty's a guy that's never struggled with condition. His conditioning's always like unbelievable for a guy. Yeah, I think I always remember hearing stories that he would like fight for fitness testing not to happen, right? Because he was just a guy that wasn't in shape when it came to the gym, but he could skate for days and do his thing. And I think just his pedigree and his winning demeanor, I think, helps that back end where they're, especially when you lose a guy like Petro, who is your Stanley Cup champion, who is your Olympic gold medalist. He's been on a bunch of different teams and won. He fits in well, in my opinion, for Doughty, right? I think there's a lot of suitable guys, but I think Doughty makes the most sense if he's capable.
And certainly I think you can give that perspective too, of being a former player and just being on this road trip before a pivotal break. Like, you want to finish strong. And we just talked about the standings too. Like, everybody around this team is winning right now. Tampa got a big win last night. Ottawa's been hot, but they beat, they lose to Tampa. Detroit's on fire. They won again. Showtime scoring that beauty last night in the shootout. Like, it gets more difficult, I think, this time of year specifically, Hutch, just because of the 3-point games and how many interconference games there are.
Yeah, it is. It's tough, right? And especially it's like flopped so much, in my opinion, right? I still think Washington is that team we never really predicted how well they've done. And now when you look at the standings, Tampa Bay, winning last night and getting back in, it's going to be a dogfight, right? And I think Columbus, with their injuries where they're at, Detroit's in a good spot, in my opinion. I think I really like the Wings here because of Cam Talbot, because of Alex Lyon. These are two guys that are not your number one outright guys, but they've been in these situations. Alex Lyon's had a few seasons now where he's pushed teams over the top late in the year. So it's going to be a dogfight. So for Toronto, I think just as we go down the stretch, you just got to find ways to bang points as you can, because it looks like nobody's letting up here.
It does not. And without further introduction, our guest today needs absolutely no intro. 14-time Stanley Cup champion. It is Scotty Bowman. Mr. Bowman, how are you today? Oh, no, I believe we got to fix your mic here. 1 second, okay? Sorry about that. We're going to try to connect here mic-wise with the legendary Mr. Bowman. in mere moments to get his thoughts sort of on Craig Berube and this team moving forward. I mean, there's been a lot of moving parts to this Huts, but I think so far so good. My analysis on Craig Berube and the job he's done so far.
I think so. I think it's been good. I think it's been bang on. I think this is what we can expect. I guess the only big thing for me is just health as we move forward. You know, we can talk about what they need and where they need to add and go over. You can beat that like a dead horse. I don't think it's really going to play out until we can see a healthy lineup and we get to the playoffs. But all things considered, you have to love, you know, what you see from the depth guys, like with Bobby McMahon. I think that's important. I think the lack of scoring is going to be worrisome, but I think when you get everyone healthy and you can like spread it out throughout the lineups, that's why I don't mind Marner being away from Matthews. I don't know if that makes it more of a dynamic. I think Willie Nylander can carry it, whatever line he plays on, right? He's so like an unbelievable player. And I just think last night, I really like when Matthews is away from Marner. I feel like it's a good fit, but I don't know how it plays out as it goes, but they're responding well to Craig Berube as we go here. And every team, I think it's easy to pick it apart, but every team is dealing with this.
I believe we now have Mr. Bowman himself. Can you hear us?
I can hear you, but I don't know if I have something. I touched something and it went off. Can you hear me?
Yeah, this is perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, our apologies. Technology is not our friend either. How are you today?
Good.
Thank you so much for doing this. We're just chatting some Leafs, a big victory last night against the Calgary Flames, and so happy to have you on the podcast. You know, initially, what's been your thoughts of Craig Berube, the job he's done in Toronto thus far, Mr. Bowman?
Well, I mean, they've had a great record, and I watched the game last night, and I was thinking about the end of the game. It's so different than when I was coaching now that, you know, you get a 2-goal lead, and when they take the goalies out with between 2 and 3 minutes to go, it's pretty hectic. And, you know, if the other team scores a goal with, you know, enough time left to move within a goal, that's the one area. I mean, they did announce on the broadcast that they spent a lot of time in their broadcast in their practice rather, about trying to defend with the other, you know, team taking the goalie out. And that's the one area where, I mean, they can score goals. You know, I was watching, and I wasn't pulling for Calgary because, you know, I'm always worried about everything, but I don't talk to my son Stan a lot, but I guess I've become an Edmonton fan now, and, you know, they got a good lead, but I never say a lead is good until it's mathematically the other team can't catch you. So I don't pull for Calgary or those kind of teams. And I didn't know if they defended as well as I would like to, but with the goalie out, you know, it's hard to say. You know, I thought Toronto's goalie looked pretty solid in the net, and I think it's, you know, it's happened quite a bit this year with the goalie out and 2 goals down, and the other teams can score a couple of goals, you know.
Yeah, it is, Scotty, and obviously great having you on here and getting a chance to speak with you. You know, I guess like for me, just this perspective, you know, obviously Craig Berube comes in, and you're a guy, you've bounced around, you've been in different organizations, you have different roles, you've won so many Stanley Cups. Craig Berube won a Stanley Cup with the St. Louis Blues, and now he comes into Toronto, you know, this giant market with this big core. You know, what would be your, you know, I guess words of wisdom to Craig Berube, or how you would want to approach a team like this heading into playoffs, trying to get them ready to try to win a Stanley Cup?
Well, they're playing with confidence, and you've got game breakers. They have enough scoring. I think the fact is that he's trying to use a few more players at the right time. You know, I don't know what they have. I mean, you know, you'd like to see a shutdown line. That's the only thing I would say to hit. Maybe he doesn't have the personnel. I don't know all the personnel right down to the end. And, you know, the good teams seem to always have one line that you really depend on. And I noticed last night late in the game they put Matthews. Matthews was on quite a long time in the last couple of minutes, and Tavares was out with him. I mean, that would be for face-off, obviously, but that's the only thing I would say is. They're not going to have enough trouble. They've done a good job, though. I mean, when you think about it, they're only a couple of points right out of the top of the whole whole division. So I would say just the fact that insulate their defense. They had McCabe and they had Tanev on, and I was wondering who they're going to come back with next. Ekman Larson has had a good year for them. He's an experienced defenseman, and that's the one area where I think he's got to really concentrate on these teams that can score goals. Can they defend at the right time? And that's what I would say. Just making sure that they don't have to worry about scoring goals. I don't think when you got the scoring punch of Matthews and Nylander now, and Marner wasn't there, and Tavares, they got enough scoring. They got to really work on their defense because that's the thing that I'm looking at. Washington and the Panthers, those teams. Edmonton has to do the same thing. I mean, they start slowly some nights, but Toronto and Edmonton play similar. They attack a lot. They can score goals, and the question is, can they really defend? And that's the big thing in the playoffs.
Obviously, you have a wealth of experience. It is a trade deadline season. What do you remember, about some of the deadlines that you facilitated, worked with, and what do you think the Leafs could look to add here over the next couple of weeks?
Well, I mean, obviously, you're always worried about your defense. I don't know their depth after. I mean, that's what I've always felt is you have to be ready for the playoffs. And I think if you don't think you have at least eight that could play in a crunch in the playoffs are tough. I remember my last year in Chicago or in Detroit rather, we had a really solid, experienced defense core. Especially fellows like Nick Lidstrom and Chelios were real anchors for their pairing. But we had a young defenseman that we had Yuri Fisher, and we were getting ready to play the final game or the fifth game to clinch the series. And Yuri he was a young kid. He was doing well. He was playing with Chris Chelios, and he got suspended for one game, which was the final game, was going to be our final game. But we had another player that we hadn't played for about 6 weeks, Yuri Slager, and we just didn't put him in because we didn't have enough, space for him. Boy, he came in, and we're lucky that we were in the finals. Imagine that, and he played the first time in 6 weeks, and he played about 15, 18 minutes, and he did his job. So. I'm always conscious that now that you really have to have a defense core because they're blocked, especially now the way they block shots, and injuries are popping up pretty readily with the team. So I don't know what their defense core is going to be like going down the stretch, but that's what I mean. It's not easy to find, but they could use an experienced defenseman.
Yeah, I think every team, right? We always talk about, what pieces gets added, and it's hard, right? Because we know it's Scotty, right? Like everybody's looking for, bottom six guys or a centerman or D. For me, I guess there's one contract. I don't know how much you follow it, but Bobby McMahon, right? We talk a lot about him. He makes $1.36 million. He's got 16 goals this year. He's a big body. He fits well, and it kind of reminds me of when in 2013 on the Blackhawks, when I was there, I was lucky enough to be part of the team with Stan. Brian Bickle. Remember how good Brian Bickle was during that playoff run? So is there some guys like that you see or you remember that you played with that are like those guys in the lineup that not necessarily are the stars, but like push your team over the top to help you win a cup in the bottom six, or, like guys that aren't the big contracts?
Yeah, you're right, because this boy's come out of nowhere. I quite a story with him. I have a good friend of mine that's a high-class doctor in Buffalo, Zvi Sharf, and his son, Ben Sharf, his best friend is Bobby, and they went to Colgate together. And I met him had lunch one day rather, with the doctor and his son. Ben didn't go on to a college career. He owns a business now in New York City, but his best friend is Bobby McManus, and I met him, and he had a cast on his leg. I couldn't believe now he's an NHL player. I didn't pay attention to what he did in college, but no, I think the role players are so important in the playoffs because sometimes they're a lot fresher because during the season they've only played 10, 12, 13 minutes, and then you get into playoffs and fatigue is always a big factor, and going down the stretch. This year, I don't know, with maybe the 10 days that these most of the players, well, except the ones that are in the tournament, they're going to take a good rest. I find now, as you get down to this time of the year, back-to-back games are crucial. There's going to be some back-to-back games, I'm sure, because of the standings in the East and West are tight. There's going to be back-to-back games, and it's the high-paced game, and you need your player. You need a good. I don't know if you can just keep playing these players. I mean, the top players, the teams are doing it though. Tampa's doing it. Edmonton does it. The minutes, when they get into 20 plus minutes, 25 minutes a game for a forward, it's pretty high pace. And can they continue on once the playoffs start? But I don't think you're going to be able to sit down and relax the last week or two of the season. You're not going to find many teams that are going to be able to sit players and rest them.
Yeah,
So
you're right.
You got to use your bench.
Yeah, definitely. And as you know, I mean, today's NHL is way different, just in the variety of different aspects. Among them is something Carter knows very well, and that's the crease. The tandem has been a commonplace in this league. How do you feel about Toronto's crease, and how do you feel about a team that has a tandem potentially winning a cup? Do you think they need to pick one guy before to get to playoffs?
Well, Toronto, I think this is, to me, the most consistent goaltending that they've had for some time, because they've had some goalies that you expected to do well, and injuries made a factor. But Stolarz has never played a lot of games in the league, but he had a good stretch last year with Florida, and he's been around, and he seemed to me to have had a pretty good start with Toronto. And I saw Wall play in the playoffs, a playoff game of, it must have been 2 years ago anyways, in Tampa. And I noticed him. I thought he looked pretty good in that game. And he's now come on this year. He looks pretty good to me. So I think the combination with the Leafs is going to be good for them, because the pressure is not going to be on one goalie, and Carter with no goaltending. But I don't know. Stolarz has, it's not like a shot in the dark, because he's had enough experience in the league. He hasn't played a ton of games, but he's sat out now for over a month, and you're coming back. Is he ready to come back now, or?
Yeah, believe tomorrow. Yeah,
he's back tomorrow. So I think they're in as good a shape as they've been. They haven't been in this good shape on the goaltending. I like both goalies so far in what they've done this year, and I think that having both of them ready to go down. I mean, yes, you get into playoffs, and you don't know if one can carry the ball all the time. I don't know if that's possible. Probably not with these two, because they haven't had a lot of long playoff runs, and that's something that they'd have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think there is that experience factor, right, Scotty? I remember my days where I started in Nashville, and I play 18. Then all of a sudden you have a year where you play 40 or 50. It shocks the system a bit, right? And you have to adjust. And I think that's why having two of these guys is great, because they both don't have that experience. And something that's been a hot button issue with this Leafs team all year, as of late, it's been is the power play. Like, as a head coach, is that something that you kind of keep an eye on? Or, like, I didn't know how it worked when you were coaching more. Did you manage the power play, or did you have an assistant that worked it? And if it was struggling, what makes a successful power play in your mind?
Well, certainly the players that you have, you gotta let them do what they want to do. I think depends on the talent level. If you have really top-notch players, like, there's different ways to do it, as long as you do it continually and know what you're doing. But it seems now that the teams that have a lot of structure, they do well for a while, but then you have to have a little bit of random for these skilled players to move around. I think penalty killing is something now, and the way they block shots, the way they use their sticks, so much different than when I ever coached. We never did all that kind of stuff. But now obviously when you're killing a penalty, I still like the pressure game when you're killing a penalty. So if you're killing a penalty and you're using the pressure, the first coach that ever did it when I was coaching, and it was Daryl Sutter. And Daryl was with Chicago, and then he went to San Jose, I think, after that, and he liked all players moving. You have to make the right decision. There's another coach that was a good penalty killing coach. It's still in the league, John McLean, and he had about the same style. That when the puck is moving, and you have one guy going out to get the puck carrier, the other three are making a position to choose the right place, the most dangerous guys. So when you have a team that has a power play that's stationary, that system is works pretty well. But when they start to roam around quite a bit and it can interchange, I think Detroit's doing that a little bit now with Todd McClellan, because the Brinket does. He's a really good player on that side, like along the lines. Well, we know the top ones I've ever remember lately are Ovechkin and Stamkos that could really fire that. Now you got Draisaitl on the other side. I have to ask Carter about that as a goalie. I can't believe how can Draisaitl beat these goalies continuously. Like I don't know, as a coach, I don't know if I like that play, but the puck keeps going in. Is it because of the speed, or what is the reason that he's in an angle? Stamkos does. I remember talking to Steve when he was with Tampa a few years ago. He was always a very friendly guy, and I asked him one year. He was playing between the dot and the top of the circle, and then I noticed they were taking that away from him. So then he moved down from the bottom of the circle to near halfway, like, towards the goal line. And I said to him one day, I met him, and I said, going into the game, and I said, Steve, aren't you taking the angle away from you? You're going way down. Oh no, but he said, they won't defend that pass as easy as the other one. So he said, what I try to do, I just get the puck as hard and fast as I can at the goalie. And I'm not trying to score. I'm trying to put it right at the goalie. And we're looking for the rebound, because we have two guys, one in the bumper and we have one in chasing pucks. I think they had Point in the middle all the time. And I just was wondering, how does Draisaitl, on the power play, how does he get? The Edmonton power play is dangerous when it's humming, because they all move around. Isn't that how they do? I don't think they have a lot of structure.
No, they move. And I think Draisaitl being on such a steep angle makes it hard for the goalie, right? So you think about the goalie having to be respect the guy that walks in the slot, whether it's Bouchard or McDavid. McDavid draws so much attention and usually feeds it to him. And I think it's such a steep angle for the goalie to get back on that angle, versus where the Ovechkin or Stamkos higher shot would be, it's kind of a flatter angle, a little easier to get to. And I think what happens a lot with goalies on the Draisaitl goal is, we're taught now to hit our posts always with our skate. So when you initially slide into that post, you hit your skate first, and there's a little bit of give where you catch the post, and then you have to try to build up your upper body to get there. And I think Draisaitl has just mastered it from such a steep angle where goalies get caught a little bit too high. And it's something that's been impressive to watch, because it's almost like we know it's coming, similar to Stamkos, similar to Ovechkin, and it just keeps happening. And I think it's just the additional threat and the awareness.
You're probably thinking, and you got to worry about McDavid. Yeah. You're right. He's not telegraphing his pass all the. It's going there, but he seems to be I watched it last night before the Calgary Toronto game, and in overtime, what a play he made! Because he had to stick handle around the defenseman, and then he had to make a backhand pass, to a player that doesn't play a lot on the power play, Connor Brown. And I think it's his first overtime goal he ever scored. But, I mean, it just was but he doesn't do that as much when he's going to pass to Draisaitl. But it's just amazing how I just wondered how these one-timers that go in from each side. And, it's Detroit, as I said before, with Raymond and DeBrincat, interchangeable, pretty good, and Todd McClellan has done a great job. Their power play just again last night 2 for 4. He's not afraid to put the second unit out on occasion. So and that's been the difference in Detroit's comeback this year. To me, is the consistent power play. It's amazing.
Been on fire, and the race is on, certainly in the Eastern Conference. And from Leafs Nation perspective, we're just hoping this is our year. I just chuckle. You have 14 Stanley Cups. We just want one, Scotty, please.
Oh no, I mean they're very. I mean, look how close they are to the first place. I think they're a couple of points behind. I mean, I don't know if that's the end all to finish. You're going to end up, whether you finish first or second in those divisions, you're going to end up with a pretty good team, even when you're playing the second wild card. But you know, the way that Berube's got experience in the playoffs. I mean, he took a team from nowhere and won a cup and beat a good team. And when you win a seventh game, he's a pretty confident guy. And I think Toronto, they've got enough scoring as long as they can work on their shutdown game. That's to me and he's obviously doing it because they announced that yesterday that they practiced. They haven't been as happy with their goalie out situation by the opposition. You know, I guess they've given up goals but it's a tough. I don't know how you practice it because, boy, it's tough to defend those 6-on-5, and then if you get a penalty and you know your face-off is crucial. But I like their team because they don't seem to really have to worry about scoring as much as some teams, and that's a big factor. If they can just, you know, they could just tighten up the last stretch of the season, and that's what they have to do in the playoffs.
You're the best, Scotty. Appreciate the time. Love catching up with you. Talk soon, okay?
Yeah, bye, Carter. Bye.
Thanks, Scotty.
Take care.
Bye.
The absolute best. I love talking shop with Scotty Bowman, just so dialed in. And I think his breakdown is just so bang on and what this team needs to do down the stretch here, Huts.
Yeah, well, he's a guy that gets it, right? And I think it's pretty cool getting a guy that still watches the game. You can tell,
Amazing.
right? And we're not just talking like even the little comment about McDavid's play last night in overtime, right? Like, which was a hell of a play on. And Broberg, I thought, did a great job of like going toward the pass. I don't know if everybody watched that in the chat because we're watching the Leafs game as well, but you know, it is a world-class play, and I think him just understanding the game so well and knowing what it takes and knowing what buttons to push and understanding the players you need is so unique. And we talk about hiring executives. Maybe just let's get him on staff. He doesn't have to work for the team. Just get him a paycheck going out and put his name on it. There's a good chance at least might win a cup just having him around.
Dude, it gave me goosebumps seeing how giddy Scotty Bowman was just to talk hockey with two Joe Schmoes. I mean, you're a bigger Joe Schmo. You play in the National League. I'm nobody. I'm an amateur. Look at the sign behind me. And just how giddy Scotty Bowman was just to talk about hockey, you know, and enjoy it and talk about his career. And the breakdowns are so good too, as you talked about.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, it's exciting to see. And even like him, like just wanting to learn still too, right? And be around the game, talking about Stamkos making his adjustment and being like, why did you slide there? And, you know, wanting to know why Draisaitl can score from such a steep angle and the uniqueness of the game and the way he sees it, it's got to be a lot of fun. And again, I think for Stan Bowman, you know, having a father like that, being around the game, you got to think the hockey IQ is going to be high. And I think there is that, you know, succession plan for most families, right? That like you look at Sam Reinhart, the success he's had, dad's an NHL, or William Nylander, dad's an NHL. I think there is that because you learn the game the right way. So it's cool to see. And obviously it was great to have him on.
Would love for Scotty just to donate one of those Stanley Cups. Again, absolutely surreal. 14 Stanley Cups, and I just want to see one in my lifetime, and I'll call it quits. That's all I want, just one Leaf Stanley Cup. That's I don't think that's too much to ask for, but the Maple Leafs feeling good about life, headed to Seattle. They got the day off, too, which is good. You could speak to that, how good that feels for a player, especially you're out west right now to get a day off, right?
Oh, yeah. The boys probably had a few last night, had a little fun. Yeah. Nothing too crazy because the cameras are out. The Leafs are in town. But it's good. It's good to get a day off, get rested. And when you're rolling, and man, does it feel good. There's nothing better than winning a few big games on the road, having a day with the guys, going for a good dinner, you know, just bonding as a team. That's important, right? I think sometimes people don't realize how valuable that is to get to know guys on a personal level. And it makes you gel more when it comes to in the dressing room after.
It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all in uppercase today. That's NATION, N-A-T-I-O-N. Not a busy slate tonight, Huts. I think I'm going to play the Los Angeles Kings puck line against the Montreal Canadiens. Remember 2 weeks ago, Habs were winning the Stanley Cup. They were winning the Cup. They barely got by San Jose last night. I tuned that game on after the Leafs game. But I like the Kings puck line tonight against Montreal. Anything you're looking at?
No, I think that's a good game to go to start with too. I think just where they're at, and the one for me would be the Rangers here. Because they're on a back-to-back. The Bruins. I thought Swayman was really, really good last night. You see Korpisalo tonight. I don't think he can carry the mail. I think the Rangers have that shot in the arm energy right now from JT Miller. But I think the Habs were. I think you said it right away. You were like they're in the same spot last year. This is just fluff. It doesn't matter. And I think last night was great. It's been I always find the schedule sometimes frustrating, right? You got 14 games last night. You're trying to like take it all in, see what's going on. Then tonight you got 3, and Monday night we had 1, but who knows? That's over my payroll here.
Yeah, I do some work for the NHL, and I do bring that up quite a bit. I'm like, some of these staggers are just ridiculous to me. But again, it is the final week before the Four Nations take place. And I'm more interested from the Leafs perspective. Does Mitch Marner play tomorrow? Because you're ultimately getting very, very close. I think Team Canada practices on Monday, and Mitch Marner slated to be a top 6 forward on Team Canada. So if he's banged up, again, I mean, it goes without saying, I do not want to see him playing if he's on 100%. And maybe it's something it sounds like he blocked a shot over the weekend. Unsurprisingly, the Leafs are saying absolutely nothing on Marner. In fact, Berube, I think, was sarcastic. He must have got banged up. He said something like that to that effect before the game, but didn't play last night. If you can't play in a game, it means something's cooking there. So we'll see if Marner comes back tomorrow. But great job today, Huts.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, my man. I always like filling in for the man, Rosie, the tough guy. You need a little goalie vibes here too, so it was good and great having Scotty on. What a treat.
We do, and we need to get to the bottom of the fact that Rosie was in attendance at the Saddle Dome last night. He did text me to say a couple people did come up to him and mention the show, Leafs Morning Take. Always great. We have a big Alberta contingent, as you all know. I just want to know if this guy, A, was wearing a hat, B, if he threw that hat on the ice. If he didn't throw a hat on the ice for Nylander, then I think I need a new co-host full-time here on the show. That's all I'll say.
I don't know. I might if you're an ex-NHLer and you're throwing your hat on
come on, man.
I don't know, man.
Game, Huts.
I get
Stop
it.
being National League. You're such a goalie, man.
I am a goalie. I don't know. That's like wearing a grown man wearing a jersey to a game that played in the league, right? I don't know.
Dude, you're like that beer leaguer who thinks he's too good, and
I don't.
He'll line up for face-off, and he won't even put his stick in there. He'll just be like, give it to the other guy because he's too good. I had so many buddies like that. It would irritate the shit out of me. Just play. If you're going to be a fan, if you're going to go to the game, be a fan. Throw your hat, okay?
Yeah, okay.
Don't be that guy, Huts.
I'm not. I just don't know if I would throw my hat if you got a hat trick. I don't know. So I've never been in that situation. I'm not even wearing a hat. You can't get mad at me. I don't have a hat on.
Good point. You have great hair, though. Great lettuce. You need more passion, clearly. So I'm just telling you right now, Huts is going to be in Nashville for the Nation Vacation, nationgear.ca, where you can book your ticket right now. If we see like a Leafs Hatty that night, and we're going to get you a hat, I'm going to make you throw a hat on the ice. We're going to record it, and it's going to go up on our socials, okay?
Well, what if the Preds I played for the Preds, you know what I mean? I was like, I know I'm a Leafs legend, but like I did spend 3 years with the Preds. What do? I throw a hat on too for them? I might be on the Jumbotron. They might give me a shout out. Who knows?
I'm going to get Pete Weber to disown you as a Nashville Predator for life. The legendary Pete Weber, the voice of the Nashville Predators. I'm going to get him to disown you as a Nashville Predator. So
no, don't say that. Don't do that to me, buddy.
If you wear Nashville gear on this trip,
no,
dude,
I'm not wearing Nashville. I'm not wearing Leafs gear either. I'm solo gear, but I just mean like I'm excited either way. I know right there, Leafs legend.
I love how there's a headshot of you in a Leafs jersey. Never played a game for the Leafs. I think it was photoshopped, right?
Yeah, it's AI probably.
Did you take a picture of that? You didn't take a picture of the jersey.
No. I think that's my photo with Arizona, and then they just swapped the jersey on me. But I was there. That's what I said. I was there. I was there enough that I got a jersey, and I'm part of the team forever. Free tickets for life. It better be.
Yeah, well, clearly not because we didn't get free tickets on this trip. Mario Kart, get him a Rose Hill jersey. I like that. Maybe we get a couple of Rose Hill jerseys and wear them on the trip. And Mario Kart, I think you should come on the first ever TLN Nation vacation. Again, nationgear.ca. Once again, thank you to everybody in the chat at the Leafs Nation 41. On your way out, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Again, if you want more great guests like Scotty Bowman, all we ask is you like and subscribe at the Leafs Nation 401. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcasts. When you do so, please leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Thank you once again to the legend himself, Scotty Bowman, for dropping by the show. Thank you to producer Andy. For Carter Hutton, I'm Nick Alberga. We'll talk tomorrow. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Roseau. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.